know, guys, as this thing moves forward, and we see Iraq fall, you can't hold or make that the responsibility of the individuals who, went out there and did their darndest to and put their lives on the line, and in some cases lost their lives or were, permanently injured in ways in which they'll never recover. I mean, we're talking about 4,600 dead American soldiers who went over there to protect that country and liberate it, if you will. And I don't care whether you agree with the fact that we're over there or how we got there. Those men went there with the right spirit and attitude. Are you still with us, Sean? Are you still with? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why, people become soldiers. And we all did our jobs. And we were called upon to do something. We moved a tyrant out of power. That's, that's you can prove that without a doubt of fact. And now everything that we fought for these people to help them gain a little bit of,
independence.
How can I put this?
Independence.
Yeah, independence and all that. Yeah, independence.
It's called self-governance, right? I mean, that's essentially what we were trying to provide them with, was the ability to say, we can govern ourselves. The problem is that our own government doesn't believe in the principles of self-governance because we are run as a dictatorship ourselves. They just do it under the cover of law, but it's all a sham. So we don't believe in that which we're selling.
Everybody. Oh.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Mike. One of the things, too, that people have to realize is that all of us went over there to do a job. We took down a government. We've done the same thing in Afghanistan, and we've helped rebuild the government. And now they're labeling all of us that have gone over there that, may have retired or may be on the verge of retirement.
Right.
And now we're all starting to speak out and say something. We're now all deemed domestic terrorists. Why? Oh,
yeah.
Wait, that's right, because we conquered 2 countries. We were trained to do that, and we did so, and now we're back here, and we're seeing it going on here.
Well,
how much longer is it going to take for a generation of people to say, hey, we're done. This is not working, and do what we have to do. But there's this cloud of fear that hangs over, because you use Verizon. My phone call right now is being listened to. I can really care less at this point. But it is time for us to all start speaking out. And if we can't speak out, what else is there?
Sean, I don't know if you caught
and once we lose that ability to speak out to the people, what does it come to?
I don't know if you caught the other day's show. I don't know if you caught the other day's show, but I specifically spoke about the issue of how law enforcement is actually stating that military guys who are coming back here from over in Afghanistan and Iraq have skill and training in things like IEDs, and that's why they need all these MRAPs and all that kind of thing. I got to tell you, folks, any sheriff or police chief that would say that should be removed from their job immediately, if not sooner. That kind of thinking is treasonous of their own communities and their own the sons and daughters of their fellow countrymen and their fellow citizens. I mean, listen, the truth is, if this country was operating correctly, you wouldn't have to fear Americans rising up to take control of a country that obviously is out of control. I'll leave you with the last word on that.
Yeah, I'll put it to you this way. I hope and pray that it doesn't come to the worst case scenario, because children are children and they should not be subjected to a lot of different things. But it's going to come to us fighting in our homes, for our properties, for our neighbors, for our friends, for the people that we care about. And it's coming to a boiling point now that we see all these things happening, and their recourse is to put us on drugs that affect our ability to think. That's plain and simple.
That and brainwashing propaganda. You know, I mean, this propaganda that we're fed combined with the drugs is a dangerous, dangerous thing.
But the funny thing is, you read the side effects of a lot of these different drugs that they're prescribing to the general public and also to veterans and all that stuff, cause suicidal thoughts.
Right. Well, suicidal and homicidal thoughts.
Of this drug. Yeah. Well, if you give people enough drugs and you combine this painkiller with this drug and the psychotropic drug that does this, well, look what's happening.
Amazing.
That's the reality of it, and I'll let you get on with the rest of your show, but I felt that it was a little important for the people to realize what's really happening.
I appreciate your call. Thank you very much. All right, have a great day. Thanks very much, Sean. Folks, when you hear and you talk about, you know, what our military people are thinking about and feeling as they're watching what's unfolding in our own country, you know, you cannot be surprised, one, that they are disillusioned, because here they thought all this time they were going over there to put their life on the line for this, you know, this ideal, right? And a righteous ideal it was. And it turns out that no such thing. I mean, there's nothing righteous about what we're doing over there at all. And the proof of the pudding is that if it was righteous, we wouldn't have walked away and allow it to collapse back into chaos and insanity. We wouldn't, and we wouldn't be seeing mass beheadings. You got to be kidding me. Mass beheadings. All right, the original section or topic for this last segment was the IMF, who's warning of a global housing collapse. But isn't it interesting that they've just made an announcement that they're considering moving the IMF from Washington, D.C. to Beijing. Well, ain't that just sweet? So the IMF, who's got their hand in everybody's pocket and recently orchestrated the abuse of the Ukraine in an effort to try to make sure that they could control that. Remember, the IMF is, for all intents and purposes, they are the lead organization of the central bankers of the planet. And who do you think owns all of these countries? All of them. Today in the Financial Times, IMF sounds global housing alarm. They're indicating that the risk is extraordinarily high for a second or another devastating housing crash, but not limited only to the United States of America. They warned on Wednesday they are publishing new data that shows that the house prices are well above historic averages in many countries. And of course, the ones that they're pointing to are the ones that, you know, have the highest per capita income. Where the housing price growth has occurred, even despite the issue of a global depression, and you can call it a recession, but that's crap. It's a global depression. In Mexico, South Korea has been stable. But Mexico, Canada, South Africa, Indonesia, UK, Germany, Australia, US, Turkey, Brazil, China, Hong Kong, and the Philippines, the prices have been climbing. And starting with the first country I mentioned, the smallest, to at Philippines, the largest. What they're saying is that these global, the acceleration of the global housing prices is fostering what is going to be another real estate bubble bursting. Now, the countries that fell in housing value were India, Greece, Italy, Russia, Spain, Netherlands, Japan, and France. Listen to the first group. India, Greece, Italy, Russia, Spain, Netherlands. Well, first of all, Greece, Italy, Russia, and Spain. Let's take Russia out for a moment. Greece, Italy, and Spain are already broke. The IMF is bailing them out at a staggering rate. They have nothing. They are already well over their GDP. Their debt is astronomical. Russia is not much better off. And interestingly enough, Russia has been colluding with China of late about starting to use the renminbi, which is not Russia's. I mean, Russia uses the ruble. So why would they suddenly be willing to sit down and work with China on their currency? I got to tell you, guys, when this bubble pops, it's going to force government's hand into totalitarian single world government, because it's going to be the only way that they can try to control and put anything back to play. But you see, it was engineered by them in the first place. But it's the only way that they can get away with creating a global collapse from which tyranny can rise from the ashes of liberty. Even countries like, Indonesia, South Africa, UK, Germany, Australia, Turkey, Brazil, China. Look, there is even some semblance of freedom in some of those countries. The idea that at the end of the day, when a global fiscal bubble bursts, that the chaos that will be so great, the starvation that will be global, the chaos, the murder, the people who will be killing each other for a can of peas. And by the way, they're going to let this run for a little while. Lean the gene pool out. And then, of course, the end goal is great. This gives us the perfect excuse to slam down a totalitarian fist for order, right? To bring order from the chaos. They're showing an acceleration in global house prices. Now, if the IMF is calling this, and they're saying that these already high levels have emerged as a major threat to economic stability, right? And that countries are making limited progress in keeping them under control. Let me tell you why. Because the people who own the IMF are creating the very crisis they're claiming is coming. Because they're the ones who are actually still lending the money on the housing booms. And who are the owners of the IMF? The federal central banks themselves. The Federal Reserve and the central banks of the world. The money players themselves. Min Zhu, the IMF's deputy managing director, he says the tool for containing housing booms were still being developed, and that this should not be an excuse for inaction. You kidding me? So basically what you're saying is you guys are practicing on us. I mean, you still haven't developed the tools to contain the housing boom. You're the bankers. You control all of the money. That's an excuse to say it's not our fault. Meanwhile, they're turning around and doing everything in their power to undermine sovereign nations, standing governments, all utilizing monetary tools. Don't fool yourself. Quote, house prices remain well above the historical averages for a majority of countries in relation to rent and income. This was announced, he said this in a speech at Bundesbank last week. And this was, the conundrum here is that this was released on Wednesday because it clashed with a European Central Bank announcement. This is true, for instance, for Australia, Belgium, Canada, Norway, and Sweden, said Zhu. In the wake of this global recession, central bankers have cut interest rates to record lows, which have pushed housing prices to a level that the IMF regards as a significant risk to economies as diverse as Hong Kong and Israel. Well, let me ask you something. The global central bankers pushing interest rates down, knowing that it's pushing real estate prices higher, are creating their own demise. It's like sitting here and saying, if I don't take a bath, I'm going to get sick. But I'm not going to take a bath because, the whole the absurdity of it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. In Canada, housing prices are 33% above their long-run average. In the UK, the figures are 27% relative to income and 38% relative to rents. By the way, in a lot of places in the world, housing prices are in the, greater than 50% of their income. When you think about that, in the United States, it's traditionally 30 to 33, 35% is about as high as they want you to be able to go without, impacting your ability to keep the economy afloat by spending your other money, everything above that 30 or 35%, on consumerism. That's the game you're being played with, folks. In some cases, house prices are recovering from a sharp correction during this great recession, says Zhu. In other cases, house prices have continued an upward march with only a bit of moderation during the Great Recession. The point is, they're warning that benign neglect. Well, benign neglect by whom? These are the people who are in control of the housing prices because they're in control of the central banks of every nation out there. You think it's a construct? How can it not be? Meanwhile, the IMF is setting themselves up. And by the way, Lagarde, the head of the IMF, came out the other day and said, well, I was wrong. I mean, we missed the signals. They didn't miss those signals, folks. That's like the Federal Reserve saying we missed the signals on the economy for the crash in 2008. They didn't miss the signals. They created the situation. They create boom and bust cycles. And every time a boom and bust cycle goes through its roller coaster, they gain more control. They gain greater control over the economy. And people say, well, the IMF or the Federal Reserve Bank, their balance sheet is growing. Guess what, folks? They don't really care because they didn't actually produce anything. All they did was add some zeros to a computer program. They don't actually have the money they're lending to the United States. Yesterday I saw an article, not yesterday, it was about a week and a half ago, and it was extraordinarily interesting because China and Japan, the two biggest holders of our debt, China at about $1.3 trillion and Japan at about $1.1 trillion. Those are the two biggest foreign debt holders, right? And they have ceased buying U.S. debt. That's it. They haven't bought any. And the Fed can't really absorb any more. So guess who's buying the United States of America's debt? The last $500 billion of it was bought by Belgium. Huh? Interestingly enough, they've bought the last $500 billion worth of debt. Here's the problem. Their entire gross domestic product, their GDP, isn't even $500 million. Or $500 billion, excuse me. So they have bought more debt than their entire GDP. They don't have that kind of money. So they're being used as a front. Think about that for a minute. That's like Bill Gates coming to me and saying, listen, I can't buy in this auction here because I'm Bill Gates and I'm, but you can. So here, and I know you're broke and you can't afford to buy these Maseratis. So I'm just going to bank you, but you act as my front man. And that's essentially what's happening, folks. Belgium happens to be, guess what? The seat of the entire European, the Euro community. The incestuousness of these relationships is stunning. And the fact that at this point, all they're doing is shuffling money around and moving it from, one walnut, rolling the ball around, and, it's your job to guess which walnut the ball is under. It's a sham. It's a scam. And everybody in the world knows it at this point. The problem is that everybody's too chicken to rise up and just kill all these people that really have run our entire planet into the ground. All of them. For greed and power. It's incredible to me how a few million people can completely and utterly destroy the lives of billions and billions and billions and billions and billions underneath them. Ain't the first time it's happened. Probably won't be the last. But when you've got the IMF, the boss of the IMF, coming out and saying, we're considering moving to communist China as our headquarters and leaving D.C. Hello. According to this article in the New American, the spectacular statement, which came after her attendance at the infamous Bilderberger Summit conference, came amid, and the Rothschilds organized Inclusive Capitalism Conference. Inclusive Capitalism, holy smoke, listen to that name. Came amid an ongoing establishment effort to prepare the world for major economic and political changes in the coming years. Listen, if you don't think these people are instituting the New World Order as we speak, you are either blind or you're unwilling to see the truth, and you've placed blinders on yourself. The simple truth is, these people have it in for you. They don't care about you. You are a human resource. You remember when people used to be called personnel at a job? Remember, oh, you got to go talk to the people over there at personnel. Now they don't say that anymore. And it's part of the indoctrination principle of America. Now you have to go speak to someone in human resources. Human resources. As if, we are just, samples on a shelf. Or we are cattle that are waiting to come to the slaughter. We are a resource. A human resource. Think about the word, folks. And these people, do you think for a moment that Christine Lagarde, do you think for a moment that the people who are members of the Bilderbergers and the people who are members of these central banking committees, do you think anybody who's a member of the IMF is concerned about what's going to happen to their family during a global crash or a global recession or a global depression? They've already got their security locked up and locked down. They've already got a place where they can wait it out. And they're planning on being at the top of the heap of the phoenix of tyranny, treason, and totalitarianism that rises from the ashes of a free planet. And that's the truth. And we're now in the club. The United States is a major participant. We're not alone, but every leader in our nation is participating in it willfully, knowingly, assistively, actively. Everyone. That's why you can't get anything done. That's why Congress doesn't care. That's why they walk around and blip, 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 but, a lot of selling all these wolf tickets. Woof, 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 woof. But nothing is accomplished. There's never a vote taken. Nobody's reining in Barack Obama because they know that the end is imminent. They've prepared for it, and now they're just waiting for it to happen. They're waiting for a collapse to happen. And the less they do between now and then, the less that they can mess up the plan. That's the truth, folks. Everything else that you see, all their other busy activity, it's all a mirage. It's a charade. It's kabuki theater. And when this collapse comes, and all these Americans are caught with their pants down, I feel sorry for all of us. Because their unpreparedness is going to carry over to everybody, even no matter how prepared you are. You can't have enough food and energy and water and ammunition to live through what's coming. And I don't think we're going to be able to stop it because I don't hear enough of us. That's the truth. There ain't enough of us out there. 20 million Americans who would stand up and rise up and say, We're going to march on every Capitol. Anybody wearing a suit who happens to be in a government role or position is going to be in handcuffs, and we're going to exit them all from the country. That would be a great start. Yeah, it would create chaos. Guess what? We live in chaos. Just controlled by them. Have a great day, folks. God bless you. I don't know. I don't know where to go from here. God bless.